All right, welcome back to the Socality Show. Today we have got an incredible guest with us. Mr. Sam Newton is joining us. Woo! What is up, Sam? How are you?
How are we doing? I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm great. Let's talk about this mic situation. You're just holding it?
I think I'm just gonna hold it. I'm just gonna Bob Barker it, like you said.
It's like Bob Barker, but it's, well, okay, yeah. He has
it's cool because I can go, like, if I really need to think about an answer, I can kind of like sit back if I want to, and
I actually like this vibe.
I'm mobile with it. Yeah,
it's very good. Take it with you. Walk around.
You said you wanted to keep it cash. That's what we're doing.
We're keeping it cash. It's too bad it's not wireless. You can give us like a tour of where you're living. Where are you living right now?
I am in Salt Lake City for just this month. Normally I'm based out of LA, but basically I had my lease get pushed back a month while they're working on my new spot. And so I moved out to Salt Lake and found this cool, like, loft style apartment. And so I'm just here. But
why'd you go there? Just because?
Just basically for this apartment itself. I have a few friends out here, but mostly because I found this spot and I just had so much work to do for the month. And so I'm like, let's go to Salt Lake. And
it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome to think that you could just be like, I'm just going to go live in Salt Lake City for the month and not be, restricted by your location. There's
awesome. Still a part of me that really, really wants to maybe in a couple of years do like a year around the world where I can do maybe like 2 months in one city, 2 months in another city, 2 months, and just kind of slow travel through a bunch of places. That's kind of my dream, where I can spend a couple months in Costa Rica and a couple months in, Japan and a couple months. I think that would be amazing.
Like that? You like the ability just to move around? You don't like...
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Obviously, just like everybody, you always crave what you don't have, and when you are traveling quite often, you're craving community, and for me, community, family, buffalo chicken sandwiches. There's no buffalo sauce anywhere in the world besides America, apparently, and so there's small things that you miss. But man, yeah, I just always travel pretty quickly through places, so it sounds like it'd be nice to do some slow traveling and.
It's such an exciting world to actually see those opportunities, because I remember years before social and all that, like if you wanted to move somewhere, like you had to like pick up and like, I'm moving to Salt Lake City. And it was like a big thing. And your family would say goodbye to you. And like, you'd be gone for like 6 months, a year. And now it's like, yeah, I'm just going to pop over, find like an Airbnb or go online, find a spot.
Literally long-term Airbnb. It was so easy. It was just click 30 days and hit the owner up. And I said, hey, I want to stay here for a month. And they were like, all right, cool.
That is so awesome. We had such a great time when you came up to Canada in the summertime. We did a couple sends. We got up pretty early. I was thinking about that. Like we had to be at Lake Louise at 6 a.m. for our sunrise, which meant we had to get up at I had to drive 2 hours, pick you up early.
Banff Amusement Park.
Well, it was funny because we got there and it was so packed at 6 a.m. on a Monday morning, and I'm like, it's usually not like this, guys.
I still remember posting on my story. I'm like, hey, what should I do in this August when I'm going to Banff? And half of the people are like, don't go to Banff in August. Just avoid it. That's what you should do. But yeah, dude, it was a great time, and I appreciate you showing us around. And that's how Scott and I got to know each other. So
yeah,
it's a blessing in disguise. It all worked out.
It was, yeah. I mean, we had connected because you ended up doing one of our workshops, and we were DMing. And then we actually hung out in Montreal, actually, even before we did that.
Oh, yeah, we did, huh?
Remember?
Wow, look at us.
We have a history.
Look at us being friends.
We do things.
Yeah.
That was, you had your very first poutine in Montreal. But you went hard because poutine to me is like, for those that are watching, it's a very Canadian thing. It's like fries, gravy, and cheese curds. But that to me is poutine. Like, it's so good. It's delicious. But you went for like the Montreal smoked meat. It was just like...
It was too much, man. It was just cholesterol in a bowl, full cardiac arrest, just sitting there and looking right into my mouth. And I ate it, and it was.
I was looking at that, going like, that should not be your first experience. That should be.
It was
like
a lot for sure.
It was a lot, but you went for it. You went for it. So yeah, we've had some time. So hopefully we have some more times going forward. So let's talk about you before this is gonna be great. I'm excited to chat with you, pick your brain. I know that we had fun when you were here, but we were able to like have some good conversations around your creative journey. And I think this is, going to be encouraging for our listeners just to see, where you've come from, what you're doing. Maybe I'd like to pick your brain on some current trends and where you see things going and all of that. So just tell us a little bit about yourself. Obviously we know your name. Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like?
The full Sam Newton backstory.
Yeah,
Well,
let's
up?
hear it.
Name's Sam.
Let's see the prequel.
I'm from Claremont, California, which is kind of a town right outside LA. I went to UC Davis for school, which is a kind of agricultural science school outside of Sacramento in California. So born and raised in California, and picked up a camera while I was in college. The beautiful thing about filming when you're at an ag science school is that no one else films, and I just kind of fell in love with shooting and became the guy on campus with the camera, and quickly started filming all of the clubs and sororities and local business commercials, and kind of got a knack for my entrepreneurial side. And that's where I started paying off a lot of my student loans very quickly, making a lot more money than I was at my campus job, and thinking, wow, there's something to this. And so I told my parents once I graduated. Well, actually, when I graduated, I didn't walk. I skipped my graduation, like to get the diploma and everything, in order to shoot a wedding to pay for my Europe trip that I was going on. And so I told my parents, I was like, I'm not going to apply for any jobs. And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm doing pretty solid with this whole filming thing. I'm just going to go travel and give this a shot. And it kind of snowballed into me becoming a full-time travel filmmaker. And now I'm here full-time on YouTube. So yeah.
Were you interested in filming and creative as a kid?
Yeah, I was always a very creative kid for sure. It's mostly on like the music side. Not that I played any I played the drums, so that does count as an instrument, but no like melodic instruments. So I always thought the drums were kind of a cheating instrument to say you played, because you have rhythm and play the drums, which is great, but like all the other instruments somehow translate into like music theory and understanding chords and understanding, but drums are just hitting shit and being like, yeah. But I think that's where I got my rhythm from. And me and my friends always used to make music growing up and make songs. I think my first song dates back to like 5th grade, where I like wrote a full song for my 5th grade classroom, and we all performed the song.
Do you remember what it was called?
No, it was something about like fly. Oh, I could text my best friend Gabe right now, and he would know all the lyrics. There's something. There was for a smoke-free, like it's basically like anti-smoking campaign, and talking about how we shouldn't smoke. And I wrote this little song about not smoking. We went up and my class performed it. It was pretty funny. But I've always been a very creative person on like the musical side, and then I picked up a camera and then fell in love with that, and was like, hey, if people can make a living doing this, why not me? And I always had that blissful ignorance and that kind of belief in myself. When looking back, I was like, oh, I was awful, but I'm glad I still believed in myself, because that kind of snowballed into where I'm at today.
Right. And were you, I know you're active on YouTube. Were you into YouTube as it was early on the scene, or what was your engagement with that platform?
For me, YouTube was just a place where I just posted stuff, not really thinking. It was by no means any kind of platform for me to like grow a following in the early days of YouTube. So I think my earliest videos were like 2011, 2012. But it was just where I put my videos, right? It was just like, hey, I got to put my videos somewhere for my friends to watch. And so I put them up on YouTube. And then once I got to school, UC Davis, back in 2012, in 2013, I think, or 2014, I posted my first like bigger YouTube video, which was called A Student's Perspective, which was like my perspective of school at the time, which is a great way to get your name out there, because it was just kind of like Davis is not known for being fun. And I'm like, this is, we have fun out here. Let's make a fun student's perspective style film. And I did that, and that went insanely viral on my campus. And that's when it kind of clicked. I'm like, oh wow, this has potential. I can maybe do this.
Right. And you talked about earlier shooting weddings. Is that one of the ways that you started making income as a creator?
Yeah. That was my secret weapon, Scott. Weddings are still to this day when people like ask me how to become a travel filmmaker or photographer. one of the best routes, hands down, is weddings. The downside is you give up a lot of summers, but like if you want to, you can shoot. What I did is basically started a separate wedding company on the side that nobody knew about. Like I started a separate website, separate Stay Creamy Weddings.
That's what it was called?
No.
I'm like, there's no way it was called that.
But I started a separate wedding company on the side, and basically was doing weddings to supplement my travel. So I would shoot like 9 or 10 weddings in a summer, make $15,000 or something, and then take that money and just the next fall travel for 3 months, go to Asia, go to Africa, go to Europe, go wherever I could with the money. And I did that for I think 2 or 3 summers, where I just made all my income off weddings, but no one really knew, and they thought I was just traveling and making money traveling. They're like, "Where's it getting this money?" But on my weddings.
Right. Why were you secretive about it? Was that a strategy, or you just?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was to keep my brand like separate. I wanted to be a travel filmmaker, so it was a little bit of that fake it till you make it approach. But you know, if people see you having success and people see you working with brand, and so I charged next to nothing for all the brands I worked with on the travel side. So water bottle, I just had no travel portfolio, and so naturally I couldn't charge a lot. But I worked with water bottle companies, Vincero watches, backpack companies, and would charge like $500 for a video. And obviously that's not going to cover a 2-month long travel trip. But I would shoot weddings. But then I hid the wedding side. The cool thing about weddings is once you do one wedding, they post it, and you know you get 5 of their friends that are like, "Oh wow, that was a good wedding video. Can I have it?"
Right.
So yeah, it was pretty easy. I didn't have to promote myself on weddings at all. And then I showed the world essentially that all I was doing was traveling and shooting for brands traveling. And they were like, "Wow, Sam's killing it." And then it kind of just manifested itself.
Was the shooting for brands more so just to build your reputation online?
Yeah, well, it's not build my reputation as much as like that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to travel and make travel content and shoot travel commercials, and I knew I had to start somewhere, right? You can't make a travel commercial if you don't make travel commercials, is what I always say. You can't make music videos if you don't make music videos. So in order to get paid to do anything, you have to have something in your portfolio to prove to people that you're owed that money. And so I was like, okay, well, let's start with some free videos, some $200 videos, some $500 videos, and then build out a website. And then when people finally come, people will be like, "Oh wow, this is a full-time travel filmmaker. Look at all these clients he has." And then after a while, I was like, "Okay, cool. I don't have to do weddings anymore because now brands are paying $3,000, $4,000." And we started a company, and it took off from there.
And so your journey, you're filming weddings, you're traveling the world, and you're kind of scaling up while you're scaling down. What platforms are you active on at that stage in your life? I know there's lots now, but were you active on Instagram? Was it just solely YouTube? What was your
100% Clubhouse? I was just talking, just in and out of Clubhouse.
3-month window.
Yeah, that was a fun 3-month window. Total tangent, but I was on Clubhouse all the time.
Were you on it?
Oh, dude, it was the best until I started getting Clubhouse followers. Then it sucked because when I first started Clubhouse, for those of you who don't know, it was this random niche app where you like got on and just talked to people. And when I first started, it was really fun because when you have followers, it notifies people when you're in a group,
right? And
then people join, and then it's like, oh, now you're on this big platform. But it was fun to hop in these groups. I remember I was in one group with like Justin Odisho, Daniel Schiffer, like 4 or 5 like pretty big name people that I always loved. And I'm like, oh, look, it's just like 8 of us just sitting in this little Clubhouse talking. I was like, this is such a cool app. But then I started getting followers, and then people randomly would start joining. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like, and then it died.
It did it did blow up and die quite quickly. Hey.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of apps do, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
But for me, platform-wise, it was Instagram. Yeah, just 100% Instagram before I really took a dive into YouTube. I had YouTube kind of on the side, but Instagram, it was big in like, the 2017 Beautiful Destinations, Sam Colder, Jacob Riglin, Noah, all those, the OG kind of like hype beast social media travel influencers. And I was a really, really big fanboy of all that stuff, and I loved it. And yeah, I was just basically just as involved in that travel community as possible.
Right. And so your whole thing, Instagram, YouTube was definitely travel content. That was what you
Oh yeah.
wanted to do.
Yes.
And you were all about making like super cinematic. Like, what do you think? What was your approach? Because these guys were in the space. What was your approach as Sam Newton?
Yeah, for me, at first, all we wanted to do was just fund our travels, right? I wasn't even thinking about making like travel films at the time. I was just like, okay, well, why don't I make just cool commercials for these clients that they don't really get the opportunity, right? $1,000 for a commercial of your product in the Philippines is a great
Right.
deal because,
Right.
we'd take 5 products, charge them all five or $1,000, and we'd make 5 grand. And that's kind of how we did it for a while. And it was fun. So we focused mostly on just like the cinematic side for the clients. And then I had all this insane footage from all around the world. And I was like, okay, well, why not? Like, I have this footage and people's videos, like people's My Year videos were just blowing up at the time.
Right.
And I was like, well, why don't I make one? But I didn't want to make one that was just the same as Sam Colder and everybody else. So I made kind of a funny version that kind of made fun of the travel influencer world. And that just absolutely caught on like wildfire. And that was my
Right.
first like light bulb that went off like, oh, this YouTube thing is a thing. Maybe I'll give this a go.
Right. And you approached it from more of a humorous, kind of trying not to
Oh, yeah.
be Sam Colder, because I mean, sometimes when a lot of people do that on social, they try and just emulate instead
Oh,
of finding their
I've
own
always
voice.
just asked myself like what makes me different and lean into that. As cliche as it sounds, I don't think very many people do that at all in today's day
Right.
and age. It's just like, okay, cool, what works? Now let me copy and paste like my video into what works, as opposed to being like, oh, everyone's going left. Let's look right and see if there's any possibility to. And
Right.
so I started making fun of the travel industry, started making like funny videos, and then I like to think I'm a pretty decent rapper. And so I was like, well, let's just make raps about camera songs. And that took off like crazy because obviously, out of the reaction you just gave, was it's just a weird thing to do. Like, who makes a full on song and music video about anything to do with cameras? And so once I started doing that, it really kind of like solidified my brand. And the cool thing about that is, you do that and you do it well enough, then people come and they find you and they go, oh, wow, this guy actually has some pretty cool, serious cinematic projects.
Right. And did you find a tension within yourself where you're like, am I a funny guy? Am I a serious guy? Am I a tech head? Like, where was that tension? Are you
Oh,
still
yeah.
fighting that?
Oh, yeah. All forever. Because I mean, again, you always want what you can't have. And
Right.
so, when I'm making a serious cinematic film, I put it out, and the first thing I think, I'm like, dude, I want to make a stupid song right now so badly. Let's do it. And then vice versa, you do make a really dumb song and you put it out, and you're like, wow, people thought that was hilarious, but like, do they think I'm a serious director and filmmaker? Because I am. I got some good stuff. They should go check
Yeah.
that out too. And then immediately I have to go make a serious film. So I'm definitely torn. But I think the glue between all of that is just me as a person, and I always try to show up as much as possible on my channel. And I think
Right.
my subscribers really like that and really like appreciate me for who I am. Hopefully, as a just a regular ass dude, and then that gives me the grace to be able to try something completely different, and people like it. So
What are your posting habits like in your schedule? Like, how often do you feel like you need to be sharing a video or be present on social?
I try not to have any kind of schedule. I try not to push that on myself, and but normally I two a month, 2 videos a month is like my where I know I'm in a good groove. I've been doing even more than that recently, so it's nice. But that's mostly just because November sponsors, they have deadlines and they need
Yeah.
it, and so. But it's been good to have the benefit of having that kind of deadline. It's just like anything where if you didn't have a deadline, you wouldn't ever get it done. And I've been able to push out so many more that I'm like, wow, I'm, back against the wall. I was really proud of how that project turned out.
Right. And how you go to make a YouTube video, how demanding does it need to be for you personally for you to put it out? Does it need to be super cinematic? Does it need to be filmed completely on camera? Is there a mixture of um, iPhone content? Like how cinematic does it need to be for you to feel like this video is ready to go to market?
I don't really think there's a way that I gauge that as much as just looking back, and because again, my videos are all over the place. It'll go from me sitting down in a chair just talking about my life to me rapping in a turtleneck to me, in some Asian country making a travel film. So it's really, really hard to just put your finger on the pulse of like what Sam's going to drop next. And so I don't really have that like bar that I need to reach as much as just once the video's done, I genuinely watch it back and think, wow, that was a good video. Whether it's like cinematically beautiful or whether it's funny and the jokes landed or whether it's a simple video, but I look at myself on the other side of the camera and think, wow, that was really natural, Sam. You really came across as yourself, even if there aren't crazy edits, even if there aren't, like, I was really proud of just the, how I showed up on camera, that take. So that's kind of what I look for, where I watch the video back and think, wow, that was a good video. I'm very proud of that video. And as long as I have that feeling, then I know I'm going in the right direction no matter what.
Do you think there's a secret sauce on YouTube right now? Like, what are people doing right? What are people doing wrong? Like, if you were to give me the creator kit of, Scott, here's what you should do on YouTube and here's what you shouldn't do. I know this is a huge
man, yeah, this is a tough one. The YouTube landscape's a weird place right now because obviously every single platform is pushing short form content, even YouTube, sadly. But if you just blow up for YouTube Shorts, it's kind of tough to, then you post. A lot of people I've seen, they blow up on YouTube Shorts and then they're posting regular YouTube videos, right? And their regular YouTube videos don't go anywhere. So what do? They go back and they're like, well, I want that attention again. So they go back and post more on YouTube Shorts. And then all of a sudden you're just like any other platform. All you're doing is making TikToks, Reels, and YouTube Shorts. And for me, that's the beauty of YouTube, is you have the ability to make long form content. So it is tough to start from the ground up, but what isn't tough, I think people love TikTok and Instagram Reels right now because it's not as quote unquote tough to start from the ground floor because you can go viral and blow up. But for me, if you go viral and blow up, you get you could get 100,000 followers overnight that only want you for that one video that they saw. And if it's anything different, they're out. I have friends that have like hundreds of thousands up to millions of followers on TikTok that if they post something even remotely different from what their algorithm wants them to post, it's just like 200 views. It's pathetic. It's wild. And so for me, I love long form content. I love being able to just sit down for 10 minutes and watch someone and actually get to know them on a regular human level. And I think YouTube provides that. And my biggest advice for people is just, if you really, really want to do it, you have to like set up a 2 or 3 year long game plan, right? Don't just go in and be like, I'm not successful on YouTube after 4 months. I'm going to go back to TikTok. Because I don't know, there's some beauty in long form content, and I think there will always be that window for long form content. I think there's always going to be, especially, for as long as millennial generation and beyond is alive, we'll want something to watch that isn't just like big yellow text screaming at you like, this is something you need to know. Watch this video right now. And you're like, stop yelling at me. So, yeah, I think if you really, really want to start YouTube and really want to be serious about it, it's just you got to start first and foremost. Just put a video up. Well, it doesn't matter how bad or good it is. Just put something up, and that'll give you the, that'll make it a little bit easier to hit the upload button next time and a little bit easier the time after that. And then finally you get your groove and you figure out who you are, and then you figure out your niche and you figure out, what works for the audience you want to go. And then you start actually studying, because if you want to do YouTube, it's a job. It's not just something you're like, I posted a good video and it didn't do well. Darn. Like you have to understand, okay, well, in my niche, this type of thumbnail works, this type of title works, those are things you have to think about. And once you really start studying, and you don't necessarily have to go clickbaity and make the titles and the thumbnails something that don't feel like you, but understanding, all right, what feels good for me, but then also what might gain a little bit more traction, and finding that balance, then it really builds on itself.
And so you're suggesting that YouTube is really a long game. Like you got to give it some time, like years.
Yes. Anything anything should be a long game. Even like I said, TikTok or Instagram, you might blow up instantly, but if you don't, Like if you don't build that base, you compare it to building a skyscraper, right? If you don't really take the time to dig down into the ground, and the ground in this metaphor is like you as a person, figure out what you want, how to like make this thing stable, and then if you don't like put in the right foundation for this thing to grow and being like, okay, this is the direction I want to go, this is the land I want to be on, et cetera, et cetera. Then you build your skyscraper. Then you build your following on top of that. And it feels really good to slowly build one floor at a time. And you have a firm foundation and you can build this thing all the way to the sky. It might take a long time, but you can do it, as opposed to, screw the foundation. Let's just start building the building. Let's just start building this skyscraper. Let's get all these followers. And you get all these followers and you haven't even had a conversation with yourself on like, what direction do I want to go? What kind of filmmaker do I want to be? Are you going to let the algorithm decide for you, or are you just going to start building the skyscraper? Because eventually there's going to be a tipping point where you have 500,000 followers who don't care at all about you, and this thing's just going to crumble, and you're going to be like, well, you're completely lost. So yeah, I really think people just need to understand that the long game. I've been doing this for 10 years, and I know it's a frustrating, answer, but if you stick to anything long enough and really give it the time and commitment that it deserves, then it's really, really hard to not be successful at it.
Yeah, I think that's challenging for the younger generation to hear, especially with things like TikTok and Instagram Reels. I can give you some quick, viral hits, and then all of a sudden they're just like, I'm an influencer now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we talked about this on our last talk when we did, where it was like, if you make one TikTok video about, when you make TikTok videos, you're making a bunch of random stuff and hoping one thing randomly goes viral, right? And you can make a video about a chair, and that chair can get 25 million views. Now, all of a sudden, what are you going to do? You're going to make another video about that chair, and now you're the chair guy on TikTok. Whether you decide, like, there's no intention behind that, which kind of sucks. Like, you didn't decide to be the chair guy. Just all of a sudden, the algorithm's like, you need more of these videos, and so you post more of those videos, and now all of a sudden, if you don't do anything to do with that chair, your channel dies. So I think it sucks to not have that intention behind it. So if you really want to game plan on like, okay, what kind of filmmaker, what kind of photographer, what kind of creator do I want to be, then try to like map out a path towards that. It'll take a little bit longer than just randomly going viral, but it feels a lot better when you get there, I promise.
So what I'm hearing is, for creators listening, be more intentional about the way you're telling your story.
Yeah, and just ask yourself, like, how do I want to show up online? How do I want people to perceive me? There's nothing wrong with TikTok. There's nothing wrong with short form content. But like for me personally, it's just not my style. And I had that conversation with myself. I'm like, I just don't love it. And so I really want to make cinematic travel films, and it's kind of tougher to do. However, there is a niche of people. There's if you go to Iceland and just put travel to Iceland in the title of a video, it normally does well. Or if you shoot on like the R5 or the A7S III, just put the camera title in the travel film, and people with that camera want to see how the footage looks, so they'll click on the video. There's so many different ways to kind of introduce yourself into that scene, but you just have to do the due diligence and understand. So there are ways to still, do YouTube. It's just you have to not, look at it for a day and be like, darn, I don't have 1 million subscribers yet.
Where are they?
Yeah, what happened?
Where are these subscribers? I feel like, too, we had such a good chat when we were walking down from Lake Louise, and I remember you specifically saying, I was really challenged by this because I was asking you about your story, and you told me about when you decided to double down on YouTube and get super intentional about building that platform. Can you talk me through that mental process of where you knew that it was like you had to go all in?
Yeah, so basically I was a commercial travel filmmaker up until the pandemic, essentially. Once good old COVID started, I was like, well, let's try, I'm going to just put out some YouTube videos, and I put out some YouTube videos, and obviously everyone's sitting around their laptop, and they did decently well. And at the end of COVID, I had like 20,000 subscribers or something. And so I started, posting a little bit more. And then I think I had like 40,000, enough to be
Wow.
like, I had a little bit of a safety blanket, right? I had my, where I had this, this business on the side, but it wasn't really making too much money at the time. Oh, I think my mic disconnected for a second. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, it's my headphones. Hold on. That's why.
You're back.
Okay. Yeah. So I wasn't able to make as many like commercial projects as I wanted to, but I had a little bit of a safety net. This is why I think travel or weddings are amazing for travel or YouTube or whatever you want to do, because you can make so much money in a short amount of time and then focus your energy on what you really want to do. You can do that in travel. You can do that in corporate shoots. You can do that with a regular job. You could take the same approach as like, I'm going to be a waiter to make the income and then make videos that I really want to make on the side. There's so many different ways, but then I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I have enough. Now I really want to try YouTube. And it was kind of like that scene in Batman where the people try to escape the prison and everyone has the rope on. And when you jump with the rope, no one makes it because the rope just pulls you back down. So the only way to get out of the prison is by climbing up the side, but with no rope to make the jump. And it was the same thing where I'm like, okay, I'm obviously Batman in this scenario because where are the drugs? And so I needed to, I'm Batman every day. And so I was like, all right, if I'm going to do YouTube, I'm going to do YouTube. I'm going to commit myself, give myself at least, I had a little bit of a runway. I probably had like, 15 grand saved up. Just enough to cover rent for a few months and just enough to like, all right, I have a little bit of a wiggle room, but now let's do it. Let's commit myself to at minimum 6 months and just see how this goes and only focus my attention. And then I made the Peter McKinnon rap. I made kind of a song about Peter McKinnon, which every time I say out loud just always sounds so cringy, but it was done well if you haven't seen it. And then I basically was like, all right, well, if I'm going to do YouTube, who's the guy? And Peter's the guy. So I'm like, let's get Peter's attention. And the worst case scenario, the algorithm's just going to connect our channels. And I decided to go full time into YouTube. And that very first video I made was that song about Peter McKinnon. And he shouted me out that next week. And I gained 30-something thousand subscribers in a week. And then I was like, okay, wow, maybe this is actually going to happen.
So were you thinking, so you were full-time YouTube before the Peter video though?
I had just become like literally it was November of 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, November of 2020, and then I posted the Peter video December of 2020. So
and I think what's really encouraging for people to hear is you had been building YouTube for years and years and years before that. So people might find you the first time through the Peter video, but for you and your journey, you're like, I've been in this a long time.
Oh yeah, again, it goes back to building that skyscraper. You have the foundation, you have who you are, because I got 30,000 subscribers. That was awesome, but now it was 30,000. It was 30,000 of Peter subscribers. They're all Peter fans, and so some of them, once they dug deep into my content, were like, God, this guy's too much of a jokester, or he cusses too much, or he yada yada yada. This isn't for me, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. But that's the beauty of like building your base slowly over time, because then no matter what, people are gonna fuck with you, and people are gonna really appreciate your stuff and who you are as a creator. So yeah, I took that leap of faith into YouTube, and it worked.
Did you feel that pressure when all those followers started coming your way? You're like, oh my gosh, all these eyes on me. What's going to be my next video? Is that like
Scott? It was like cocaine. It was like when that video took off. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Now every video I'm gonna do is just gonna get viral and everything. And there was definitely a pressure where I'm like, I didn't feel the pressure as much as I was like feeling the like adrenaline of that moment. I'm like, oh, now we got to create more. Now we got the attention. And so I posted a couple videos, and I kept reminding myself like, all right, well, still just make sure you're making stuff for you, and make sure you're making stuff that feels right and that feels like who you are. And even if these people that just found you don't appreciate it, that's good, because now you're showing them this is who you are, and you're not going to give them this version of you that they expect you to be. And so I posted some videos, and obviously just, my channel cooled off a little bit, where it was like, oh, now I'm not getting 20,000 views in one day of posting a video. But
Was that discouraging for you, demotivating? What did that do to you?
Naturally, because once you have that high, you want it back. But also, I think I had a little bit of a moment of discouragement, but not nearly as much as I would expect, because I just kept reminding myself, like, what do I want to make? And I have a full-time job making YouTube videos. Like, even if I'm
Right.
making $40,000 a year, like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't have kids. I don't have a mortgage. I just pay rent, and my car is paid off. I just need enough money to cover rent and food. And then
Right.
as long as I'm able to get up and travel, and that was my dream. And so I didn't really have to think about it too much more, because I was like, this is great. And I think that's where all the best films and projects come from a
Yeah.
place of like, I'm comfortable with who I am and what I'm making. Now let's make something that I'm really passionate about, and then people build on it, as opposed to, creating from a place of like, what's going to go viral, and
Right.
then making that. And then if it doesn't go viral, not only did you not make a film that you're proud of, but then you made a film that failed. And so it feels double shitty, as opposed
Yeah.
to making something you're proud of that doesn't take off, because then you still look back at it and be like, wow, that was a really good video. Probably should have gotten more views, but whatever. I'm
Yeah.
glad. Yeah.
Did Peter reach out to you before he shared the video? Was there any
Yeah.
communication?
Yeah. I mean, Peter was a legend about that whole entire process. And, from me being such a Peter fanboy, just looking into your DMs and seeing like one new message from Peter McKinnon, like literally an
Were you
hour and a half.
nervous? Were you thinking, he's going to take this negative at first,
A
or
little bit, but I also, again, this is why YouTube's a little bit of a business. I also kind of understood. I was not painting him into a corner, but like, I understood that if he didn't respond positively, I don't think it would have been a bad look on him, because the video was very, very friendly, and it was like me kissing his ass, and it was
totally?
supposed to be like a fake call out, but in reality, it was like, if you read beneath the lines, it was like very much me telling him how much I loved his stuff. And so if he did respond, I knew it would only be positively. Like, it would have been weird if he didn't like it, he would have just avoided it. It would have been
Right.
weird drama for him to respond and be like, fuck, like, because then
Yeah.
it would have been just this big creator attacking this nobody on YouTube, and it would have been like, what's, dude, move on. So I kind of knew a little bit that there was really one option for him to take if he wanted to take it, and he did, and he hit me up. And it was like, the cool thing about Peter is he's exactly what you would think he is in person. People always say don't meet your heroes, but I met him, and we've talked a bunch, and he's just been so helpful the entire journey. And it was such a blessing, because I was a little bit nervous about like, oh, I hope he's not a dick. And I
Right.
hope, and yeah, he was a really, really good guy, and we still message to this day. And I even got the chance to meet him, and yeah, it's been legendary. So he reached out to me before the video went live and just said something cryptic like maybe I'll make a reaction video, or like maybe there's a new Pete reacts next week or something. And I was like, what? And I'm telling my friends, I'm like, Peter might react to my video. Like, I didn't know if he was going to do like one of those videos where he reacts to like
Right.
7 videos and mine was in
Yeah.
it. And I was freaking out that whole week. I'm like, what's going to happen? Or maybe he's not going to post it, yada, yada. And then it comes out with this entire video about my video. And I was like, what the fuck?
Right.
What is
Wow.
life?
Wow.
Yeah.
That is such a cool story. Such a cool story. And he's Canadian. Of course, he's going to be a nice guy,
Yeah.
right?
Naturally. You know,
Naturally. Naturally. You can't be mean if you're Canadian. It's like impossible, I think.
you guys are just so, you would think you're all mean in your igloos with lack of heat, but, just eating poutine all day. But when you really break it down, most
Talk about a
Canadians that I've met,
generalization.
dude, Canadians are so creative. What's the deal
Living
with
in
that?
igloos. We
Why are
are
there so many,
creative.
I guess things like Socality, but there's so many like creative groups. Shout out to all my Canadians out
Yeah.
there. But
Well,
you guys really got the hit the nail on the head with that creative industry you got out there.
we actually have a lot of creators here, a lot of creative musicians, artists, photographers. A lot comes out of Canada. So it is a good place to come from and to visit. Make sure you come and visit us.
Go to Banff in August.
We'll show you all the igloos. We'll take you straight there. Um, Yeah, no, what a cool story, and I love your journey. What so you look at your life now? Okay, you're living the dream. You know you're telling me you have no mortgage and kids, exactly what I do have. I'm thinking as you listed, I'm like I got a mortgage, I got kids. You know you're living the dream. You can go to Salt Lake City, get a place, and you know you're going to travel the world. What does your future look like in 10 years? Like you know, have you ever thought about that?
Hey, let me say I'm living my dream right now. Mortgage and kids can be a lot of people's dreams, and eventually one day I would love to have both of those things. So
Yeah,
there's
they're
nothing
great.
wrong
Not the
with
mortgage,
anything.
but the kids are
I'm
great.
not I'm not going to be a, well, I mean, you have
I
equity
didn't
in
dream
something
of a
you own.
mortgage. One
Yeah, but
day
you
I'm gonna get a
own, you're
mortgage.
putting that money towards something you own. You know, there's
It's
benefits to
true.
all of these things, and
I'm building an
you,
asset, right? Yeah,
exactly. So
exactly.
I don't want to be a 9 to 5 shamer. I hate the creative industry, how much they're like,
Right.
you don't follow your dreams, you
Yeah.
bitch. Stop working that job. Do what I do. Like that's the worst. I hate those people. And so do whatever you need to do. Follow your right journey. But wait, what was the question? I'm
The
just
question was, where? What are you
sure.
gonna do 10 years from now? Like,
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
have a mortgage and kids. I
yeah.
don't know. I'm
Cinematically, I guess I'm
coming
asking
up on
artistically.
29 years old, so it's gonna be my
Right.
last year of youth
30's
here.
coming. It's coming for you.
And yeah, I don't. I tend not to look that far ahead, Scott. I tend to the only way to climb a mountain is by taking one step at a time. But you got to glance up every now and then. I
Hmm.
understand. But for me, if I'm enjoying where I'm at right now, if I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now, I only really have to look like a year ahead, max. And for me, it's just that's the beauty of YouTube when you really invest enough time and you really create that space for you, then you have the ability to make projects that, you know, you get paid to make the projects that you love to make, and that's amazing. And so for me, that's my core, what I talk about on my channel all the time, and my core belief is just always making sure me and my subscribers are making the time to make films that they are just proud of. Like
Hmm.
regardless of the paycheck, regardless, like every now and then just make one thing that you really want to make it about your family, make it about yourself, make just something, and that will fuel your creativity more than any other project, any other trend, any other algorithm. So for me, I try not to look 10 years down the line as much as just continually ask myself like, hey Sam, check in, little check-ins. Like, this is what you like, right? You're enjoying this right now. You're doing great. And as long as I keep doing that, then I don't have to think too far down the line.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think sometimes in life, you're just taking it step by step because as long as you're doing what you're doing, it's moving you forward. It's obviously moving you closer to the things you should be doing down the line.
Yeah,
So
and
I
if it
think,
feels wrong and you feel like then that's when I pivot. That's when I'm like, okay. And obviously, if you're building bigger things like a production company, or if you're building, then these are things that you have to have 3 or 5 year goals for. But for me, it's just me and my YouTube channel. So I just want to keep checking in with myself and being like, Sam, are you loving this? Are you still that same kid that made the video about, your college campus? Are you still that same kid that enjoys these rap songs you're making? If the answer is yes, then keep doing it.
right. And then, which makes me ask you this question about, obviously you're building YouTube, you were onto the thing with Peter, you kind of blew up through that and gained a lot of momentum. How much pressure do you feel to be ahead of the trends or ahead of the curve? Are you, so you're not coasting in what you're doing? Like, do you feel a pressure to constantly be looking at what the next thing on social is?
I never think about that. Proudly enough, I'd like to say, yeah, I'm never thinking about trends or the next app or any of that. Um, I am thinking about like, will a video perform well? I don't want to come in with this altruistic approach of like, I'm so good and I don't care about algorithms and anything. However, I definitely don't think of like, oh, what's gonna be the next trend? I'm not plotting like that, but I am plotting like, okay, well, I have this cool video idea. How can I, fit it enough in a way that it does well and is shared to enough people? Because it does suck that the algorithm exists, but you do have to play the game a little bit and you do have to make sure people see it. And um, yeah, what can I do to make this video like live up to its full potential? And those are little conversations. But yeah, I wouldn't say I'm really trend hunting. I mean, the cool thing about YouTube is it's you're not really doing trends like any other app where you're like, ooh, that's a trend, let's hop on it.
You're not going to be dancing anytime soon.
Yeah, there are hot topics people talk about, but I'm not like a tech. If I was a tech guy and the camera released, then you talk about that camera at the time, or you talk about, which is a great way to get into, if you want to be a travel filmmaker, you make one travel video and then you make a review video or a cinematic review, and there's so many different ways. But yeah, I don't think I'm really hunting trends as much as I'm trying to just keep making things that I like making and doing whatever I can to make sure that those videos still perform decently well.
Right. Nice. We're going to wrap up here soon. This has been a great conversation. And I want to know, what are, obviously you've pushed through, you're hustling away. You're seeing some great growth, living the life. Are there challenges in your current world, new challenges? The new challenge that you feel like, okay, I've conquered this, accomplished this, but this is my latest obstacle that I need to overcome.
That's an easy question.
Wow. Okay.
You've met my latest obstacle, Scott. I just got in a relationship like 5 months ago. And so for the longest time, for like 7 years, I was single, and I was like very selfish of just like, what do I want to do? I'm going to go do that. And now I'm balancing. I'm like, oh, damn, there's another person in my life. I have to communicate these things. I can't just go up. And so I'm really trying to balance, like, Michaela, shout out. She's a nurse.
She's awesome.
Isn't in Scott's met her. She isn't in the creative field at all. And she kind of balances me in that way where I'm able to not, think about work 24/7, which I do think about work 20. Ironic, because I'm in a apartment in Utah for the whole month. Getting work done, but it's been nice, and it's been grounding to try to figure out, like, okay, how do I balance, there's more to life than just working. And so that's my current problem, but she's amazing. She's the best problem I've ever had. And yeah, so just dealing with that, because being a creative sometimes can get a little bit lonelier, and she's been amazing in helping me navigate this journey, and yeah, it's been fun.
She's awesome. Yeah, relationships are so important. They challenge you, push you. They make you a better person.
Is that a douchey response, by the way? What's your biggest problem? Oh, my new girlfriend. My new girlfriend. I just hit
she's my biggest obstacle is Michaela. Okay, awesome. Shout out, and by the way, shout out Michaela.
Yeah, the interview question of what's your biggest problem?
I think
my biggest problem is that I work too hard and I care too much about this company.
I think what you're trying to say, let me help you, is that, you've been used to doing everything solo, and now you've got another person in your life to navigate through, and relationships do make things different, because you can't just shut off and be like, I'm just going to plug away. But relationships require, investment into each other, and quality time, and chatting, and communication. And those are things that just are different layers as you move forward. And then one day when you get your dream of a mortgage and kids, you will add more layers into your life.
One day far in the future.
I know. You know what? Family's a blessing. The kids are so cute.
Yeah, it is.
But they're good to have. But no, I don't think that was a bad answer. I understand what you're saying is, as you go forward, there's always new things. And it would be the same with us as we're growing, bringing on new team members and staff members. And, when you're used to doing things a certain way, and then people come in the mix, and then you've got to change the way you do things. They are definitely, for sure, growth patterns.
Most people should understand what I'm saying, but after the answer, I was like, wait a minute. That's kind of funny.
They're good. So anyway, this has been great. Sam, we want to thank you for your time, for your energy, for this long mic.
It's what we do. It's what we do.
You're so awesome. I appreciate you taking the time and investing into our community and giving them this insight. And you're an awesome creator, but you're an awesome guy, and we appreciate all that you do. And so everyone, go follow Sam Newton on Instagram and YouTube. And of course, I don't know, are you on TikTok? Are you TikToking?
Just Instagram and YouTube. Those are my two.
Instagram and YouTube. Keeping it simple.
As much as Scott wants me on Vero.
I was pumping you on so many apps when you were here.
Yeah, that's funny.
But that's, but you're focused. You're staying in your
focused.
This is why you're crushing it. So anyway.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you having me. I love what you guys are doing over at Socality, and you guys are building a really cool community, and everyone who's listening to this podcast right now should understand that by now, that you're blessed to have a guy like Scott in your life, and the whole Socality team kind of leading that creative charge of community. So that's really dope. And if you did make it to the end of the episode, shoot me a message. I always love hearing from people and seeing what you got out of this, and love talking to you. So my DMs are open.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sam. Have the best day. All right, we'll see you guys.
That's the plan. All right.